Any advice and information from this podcast is general only. It has been prepared without taking into account your individual circumstances and needs. Before acting on any advice from this podcast, you should assess and seek advice on whether it is appropriate for your needs, financial situation, and investment objectives.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Not Another Finance Podcast.
Hello, we are back, and this time it is further along the lines of, yes, investment, but more so part two of all things in and out of negative gearing, more respective to investment property. So no doubt you tuned into our previous episode, and this is just a follow on from that, just to add a few more bits and pieces and vital bits of information that you might want to consider.
Yeah.
I guess this time we're going to go a little bit more into detail, I guess into the local area, which is Townsville and some of the suburbs within it, and just have a look at and discuss some case studies of some real clients, I guess, and their sort of, when we talk about negative gearing and what it looks like for them. So, Jessie, before we talked about, some of the key considerations with negative gearing, pros and cons, the why, how it helps people, what it is, going back to the key considerations, because when people get into investment property, as we mentioned, it's a pretty large purchase. You can't just buy something it's very hard to buy something with 5 or 10 grand. You're going in with the hundreds of thousands. So do people, can they choose to be negative geared, positive geared? Can I just go, I want to be negative geared because it helps me with tax? Like how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know if you can choose, but you can prepare.
Yep.
So you can do the numbers yourself, like you said previously, do some research.
Yeah.
What are my repayments going to be, which is the biggest expense? And then also make some strategies, I guess, as to if you want it to be negatively geared or positively geared.
Yeah, because I guess, we touched on before, and I suppose we've said it again. It's not that easy to just go out and buy something for 500, 600, 700,000. Sometimes you might not have the cash to put a deposit down. Let's just say you're not using equity. Let's say this is your first foray into investment property for whatever reason. So you're not using equity from your other house, whatever. You're using cash. Not everyone can come up with that amount of cash to make their loan a bit smaller. So because that's what it's not whether you got spooked or whether whoever has sort of advised you or you've gone off your own bat to go, I want that house. I want that to be my investment property. It's going to cost me a bit, but I haven't got the cash. I guess the more you borrow, the higher your expenses are. Is that a fair assumption, whether it's interest-only payments or principal and interest?
Yeah. You could do interest-only repayments.
Yeah, okay. That is true, yep.
Which means, if you have a $500,000 property, you pay whatever amount to get that to zero over 30 years. But if you have an interest-only loan, you're literally just paying the bank to have that $500,000.
Yeah.
So just the interest purely.
And usually they don't last the term of the loan. Usually interest-only is like 1, 2, up to maybe max of 5. I think I've seen a couple.
I think so.
So at the end of the day, yes, interest-only is helping your cash flow, but after that interest-only period, say 5 years, the amount you owe is still at that 500 grand or whatever.
Yeah.
But it has helped your cash flow. And I think we had a little bit of a case study. There was a client we saw a little while ago. We ran through potentially they're going to move. They're tossing up whether to rent out their house they live in now. And we ran through the hypotheticals of, well, hey, you're going to lose an income while you move away. So there's that cash flow thing we talked about, young family, bills, but just their opportunities are sort of overseas. So one of them is going to have to sort of not be able to work for a couple of years. Potential is you could negotiate with the bank to rent that house out. That's great. You're going to earn an income. But the difference between the principal and interest return on investment was about 0.2% cash flow. And if they were able to negotiate with the banks and just have that as an interest-only loan invested, the return on investment was about 1.18%. So I guess when we look at it in numerical figures, there is a numerical figure there, but it just shows there's about a 1% difference in helping your cash flow. And for some families or some individuals, that can be a significant amount on your weekly cash flow. Remember how we outlined negative gearing is great, but you don't get that tax refund until after you've done your tax return. I'm talking just generally normal owners. We're not talking about ABNs or companies or trusts or anything like that. This is sort of mum and dad, both employees, pay their taxes, when their employee pays it. They're taking on all these costs for the negative gearing of the property throughout the financial year, and then come around July, August, you do your tax return. So you've essentially got to,
that's
more
a whole
money's
year.
money's walking out every week, or every month, and you're not really getting that negative gearing tax sweetener until you've done your tax return. So just consider that, week to week, month to month, your cash flow is stinging a little bit. So there's some of the options with that. That sort of answers that question. Yep, potentially you could go interest only, which is great. It's going to help it. Short-term cash flow, yes, but it won't reduce your loan. So whether you sell in 5 years or 2 years or whatever, that whole loan amount will still be there. So, interesting interesting considerations there. And there's some of the considerations when you're tossing up about this whole, hey, how am I going to structure this investment? Do I want a positive cash flow or negative? And we talked a bit about that. Some of the considerations are not out of your control, aren't they? So you bought your property, it's negatively geared, or let's just say it's on the way you've done the math, it's positively geared, but let's just say your tenants move out, they cancel their lease for whatever reason, or their leases run up, and you are now trying to find another tenant, and you don't get a tenant in there for 1 or 2 months. So then you've still got all your money going out, you're still paying rents, still paying agent fees, still paying interest on your loans, still paying insurance.
Yep.
But there is no revenue or rent coming in, and that happens to some people. For whatever reason, whether they need to fix something before they rent it out again, like the toilet blew, plumbing, irrigation,
roof leak,
kitchen reno. There could be for some owners, tenants just can't afford to pay and don't pay, or you might not be receiving rent because it's in between leases. So that's another consideration.
Possibility,
Yeah. So then if you are negatively gearing, even with people paying rent, imagine the compounding factor on that when tenant lease finishes, you're looking for more tenants, a month or 2 months go by before the new tenants start paying. That's adding on to your already negatively geared property. There's a few people that, that cash flow will really sting them, or they start digging into like their personal savings to keep that property afloat. So there's some of the considerations there.
And then also interest rates, which could be a pro or con. The interest rates could go down, which means less repayments, or they could go up, meaning more repayments.
True. And, generally, not to say for all property investor owners out there, interest rates go up. That means your costs go up. Sometimes you might not be able to push all those to tenants because it just depends on where your property is. Every area, every suburb, every city is different.
Yep.
It's easy to say, I'll just jack my rent up. I don't know if they say it in that voice. They could. I don't know. But what happens if the demand isn't that strong in the suburb you have that property? What happens if there's 20 other houses out there and you're competing with them? Like there's a lot of vacancies. That means the tenants have, I guess, the power of the market there.
Yeah. To
sort of pick and choose. Well, if he's putting his prices up, I'm going to go for that cheaper one because it's the same place.
True.
So there's another consideration there. Oh, this is sounding stressful, but no, it's right. This is just some considerations you want to think of.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I guess we touched on we'll look at sort of a case study, and I think we had a place from a client there's a suburb in Townsville called Burdell, which is on the northern fringes of Townsville, and this is sort of a real life scenario. So long story short, bought the place for $715,000 about a year and a half ago.
Yep.
Current value is about $780,000. So there's a tick. There's an upside. Growth. They've experienced on value wise. Quick math, you're better at it than me. Oh, good. I'll get my calculator. No, it's about 65 grand, in a year and a bit that they haven't really had to go out there and, I don't know, do extra work for.
Yeah.
Rent is, give or take, they're getting about 700 a week. Rates in Townsville will give or take about 3,800 to 4,000 a year. We've sort of factored in, there's insurance and other expenses of about nearly $3,000.
Yep.
Maintenance, we try and average it out. We definitely try and let our clients know that this is a real cost that will come up. You might not pay for maintenance in this financial year. Aircons are good, lights are good. But there will be a time, if you hold the property long enough, you will need to do some sort of maintenance. The tenants might mention, the carpet's looking pretty shoddy, or the kitchen stovetop blew.
Yeah.
Irrigation's blown because it ran over at the lawnmower. Aircon's definitely shysted itself. That's a real one. So there's some there. Agent fees are 9%, so that's about $3,300 a year. They're currently paying principal and interest repayments on that kind of loan. It's pretty decent. It's about $3,600 a month.
Yeah.
Just because it's a decent sized loan. That's an example. Not everyone can come up with a 50% deposit. So when we step through it, gross, they are negatively geared. It's costing them about $724 a fortnight.
That's before tax.
Before they get their tax sweetener, which we sort of talked about, you touched on before. So every fortnight, as an average, after all their expenses come out, it's costing them about $700 and a bit per fortnight.
So they've got to find $700 a fortnight to kind of cover.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a fair bit, especially, whether you're everyday Australians, middle income earners, household income, I don't know, 180, 200 grand, 220 grand, few kids, car repayments, bills, school fees, vet fees. Then you're adding these on. This is in a perfect world where things are going well. So come tax time, let's just say we haven't really talked about like the depreciation side, but that's there. But as a general outline, let's just say their tax return's roughly like 32%. They're getting about $6,000 back as a tax refund.
Not bad.
Negatively geared, tax refund. That's a good one.
Yay.
But after that, net, it is still negatively geared. So essentially after their tax refund, it's costing them still about $492 a fortnight.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So they've sweated out the year. As an average, after everything's sort of been said and done, they get the tax refund. It's nearly costing them $500 a fortnight. In cash flow.
Almost $13,000 a year.
Give or take. Is that sustainable? That's a case-by-case basis. Every owner, family, couple, individual is, circumstances can change, but that's what it looks like for them. So as a percentage, their return on investment is about -1.64.
So that's how much they're making on the property over how much they've
as a percentage. They've invested essentially $700,000. That's what the cash flow is a negative. But what we haven't talked about is one of the positives you mentioned before, which is the potential capital growth in the background. I think you had some stats on Burdell.
Yes. So we averaged it out for the last 10 years.
Yep.
So which was pre-COVID. Townsville's a little stale.
Well, yeah, 2015 it was. It was depending on what suburb. I know the area of Burdell pretty well, and house sat on the market for a little bit longer.
Yeah, but then post-COVID, there's been a huge amount of growth. Yep. So on average, we calculated about 5.75% each year.
Okay.
On average over the last 10 years. Yep.
And so the average for like our listeners out there, it doesn't necessarily mean that investment property will grow at 5.75 every year. There's going to be fluctuations out there. Investment, similar to shares and managed funds, we look at the long term. So you're looking at the long-term average, not just what it made last year. Because if we talked about the last 12, 18 months, we're probably talking well plus 20, 25, 30%, which is significant. Like this couple, essentially, $65,000. That's just under, it's about 8%, give or take. So that's the consideration there. So as a law of averages, rough return on investment is -1.64. Their average capital growth is about 5.75. Rough Fitzy maths puts it at, they're averaging about 4.11, give or take, % a year.
On growth alone.
Yep, and the growth is helping them out. Like the cash flow is what's sort of subtracting a bit,
Yeah.
but as a growth. So, well and behold, in 10 years' time, that property would have grown a fair bit. Yes, you're probably going to sell it well into the millions,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess that's a story for another day when we talk about agent fees, solicitor fees, bank fees, advertising fees, all these things to shift that property. So just give that some consideration, and they're the considerations when we talk about negatively gearing. Property's going up, but cash flow in the meantime is costing you. By all means, it's an asset. It's most likely going to grow over the long term, but can you afford it through your life stages, 20s, 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
to keep that as a net? Because it's going to take some time for that to turn into a positive cash flow. So, it's good that you can use the bank's money to grow your wealth portfolio, but you've just got to consider what is working for you in your 20s will not necessarily work for you in your 30s or even in your 40s. So there's horses for courses. I don't know how many other sayings are out there, but it's definitely a consideration. And it's something I came across years ago, and a heap of our clients, a heap of your clients are definitely asking those questions now, and we're helping them sort of map it out in a math sense, and just doesn't always have to be purely numbers. There's some subjective things as well, as we talked about. We're having our first kid, but it's triplets. Well, let me show you. No, these are prime examples of how things can change in your life, and for something that's costing you a lot more money, can you sustain it when things change in your different stages of life? So just something to consider.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, good points.
And I guess definitely what Jessie sort of ensures with people is it going to fit in with your plan? Like, how much are you willing to sort of give up now or sacrifice to keep hold of that property? Because there could be some sacrifice there, as we mentioned, fortnight to fortnight, $700 and something. That's a bit out of the family budget. Even if you've got two reasonably good income earners, let's just say you're both teachers on 115, 120 grand a year, as an example. In your early 30s, give or take, you've been out of uni for a bit, add in all the other expenses, it can be a little bit of a stretch.
And over 10 years, that's $128,000 that you've poured into that property. Yeah.
So if you can afford it, get out and get after it. Cool. So we touched on a bit of those. Any other bits you want to add regarding this sort of like the negative gearing side that we've covered over the couple of episodes?
Yeah, I guess it could be a good strategy depending on, like you said, your circumstances.
Yep.
It's just I guess there's that mentality at the barbecues and stuff like that, get an investment property, and like we discussed in the past, just doing what we've kind of done or do with our clients, checking what's the growth in the area. If it's negatively geared, how can we afford that over the next 10 years or whatever the goal is? Just making sure you've done your research and kind of understand it, I think, is good before jumping into it.
Jessie, I won't lie. If I'm going to go down this investment property again, I'm probably going to come see you. Is that cool?
You can see yourself, Yannick.
I try not to look at myself in the mirror. Let's just put that there. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging around and listening to this part 2 of our negative gearing sort of podcast. It's live on video. By all means, send us some emails or a phone call if you need to have a chat about anything. Until then, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao, J-Mac.
Bye.